That's so cute.
I love it. It's so adorable. Of course, his opponent down here in the bottom right going to be sending out a second drone to scout for any proxy barracks shenanigans. In the red, representing Kaizi Gaming, it's Solar.
In a matchup like this, Pig, this is one of those ones where once upon a time we would have spent the entire early game talking about what kind of insane cheese does Solar need to do to beat Maru, or perhaps if we go back far enough in time, we ask ourselves, where will Maru be proxying his barracks? But he's not quite as predictable as he used to be, and he also doesn't come off as bulletproof as he used to be either. So I think that makes this matchup interesting because we've had a couple of upsets already here and there, and even in the earliest stages of this tournament. So I'm wondering what Solar's going to bring to the table, because I'm not sure that I quite understand what exactly he might even be thinking he needs here, if it's anything other than just a really good straight up normal macro game.
Yeah, I feel like Solar has been really good at controlling the early to mid stages of TVZ. Even when a Terran player looks kind of uncontrollable, Solar's really good at kind of shutting down their first few pushes and really controlling things with Muta, Ling, Bane, especially one of his big specialties. What I do think Solar sometimes runs out of steam with is his ability to close the map out. Sometimes when he has an advantage, I feel he could drone a bit harder. I feel he could double down on his creep spread. And I also feel he could split his army up. Sometimes I do feel like Solar struggles to kind of just dominate the map in the late mid game and early late game the way I'd like him to when he has that advantage. And that can be scary because we just saw the grit, of course, the guys that we're talking about at the desk that Maru showed in that TVT. His ability to just hang on. He will not leave unless you force him out, and he's very good at clawing it back in the late game. So I guess that's the one thing which worries me about Solar. It's the one area he needs to really focus on. How does he capitalize and finish off games if he can gain a lead against Maru?
And I think that's an excellent point. I mean, we were, you, me, and everybody else, we're just biting our nails watching the end of that last TVT, right? Because we're like, oh, this one looks over, to be done. And then Maru's like, oh, are you giving me the tiniest little space to slip between the cracks? He's like, well, it turns out I actually don't have any bones, and I can contort my body to fit through tight spaces if I need to. And of course, TY is a fantastic player who wasn't about to give it away that easily. But yeah, I think it's one of the most frustrating things, right, about playing against Maru is how tenacious he is. If you leave even a single thread out, he's going to pull it all the way until your game plan completely unravels into a heap on the floor. And that's never a good time, Pig. It's never a good time when that happens.
Indeed. We're going to see Overlord speed, so Solar wants to scout everything that's going on. It's a Hellion Viking opening with a super quick third command center from Maru. I really do enjoy having a Viking out against the speed Overlord build because it's already a little bit of an, I guess, inefficient opening. The Zerg investing a lot in that scouting, and if your Viking can pop out and just shoot down this first Overlord, make it very costly every time they want to get a scout off, you might even intercept the Overlord ahead of time. Gives you some good windows to make good use of that, and no real safety precautions at all for Maru. A greedy game one start. Doesn't even have a tech lab down. Who needs a tech lab? He's like, nah, no Banshee, nothing like that. I'll just start Stim, go to 3 barracks from here, double eBay, and he's going to have that bio explosion out across the map very early on. So for Solar, the question is, how do I maintain pace? How do I keep on par with a player who's going to have such a big economic explosion? For him, he's already pushing creep towards the middle of the map, so I think he's already poised and thinking about establishing a 4th base and fighting for his life to hang on to that.
Yeah, I mean, it just immediately brings me back to what you were saying at the start of this game, right? It's about Solar being decisive and being very assertive in the direction that he goes. You know, not playing too middle of the road, taking an opportunity to be greedy and being really greedy. But at the same time, Maru's going to keep the pressure up. That was such a fast third command center. And we've got double engineering bay finishing now to start those upgrades very early while the rest of the barracks get done and the reactors get complete. But Maru hardly has anything to stop what would, you know, if there was a run by or something that could have gotten there. But that's the whole point of the way that he plays. When he plays so fast and stays out on the map, he forces Solar to stay back and defend, even though he's playing one of the greediest possible setups that he could go for. These Zerglings going to try to catch the Hellions on the way out, but with 7 drones killed and the Liberator, Pig, Maru is roasting and toasting some drones.
Yeah, the Liberator sliding around the back door. One of the advantages of Romanticide, there's so many angles for those air units to come from. The fact that the Hellions were able to distract and create that opening at the same time, a splendid maneuver. 9 worker kills, and the Liberator continuing to reposition, getting as much value as possible. And Maru patiently pulls the Liberator away. Oh, he's going to go back in. Just when I was about to praise his patience, he does throw the Liberator away there, but grabs 1, 2 more drones. Very nice damage when you have a third mineral line that's already mining, when your upgrades are almost a minute ahead, and you've already got the marine factories just, well, I guess they're barracks, not factories, but the the marine producing structures just powering away. And there's always that point where you go, well, supply's all right for Zerg, but I am afraid as those reactors come online, I think Maru, I mean, he's about to force the Zerg into full defense, and he's going to have such a big production behind this.
Yeah, waiting for that 1-1 in the combat shields. Can't quite contest 4 queens with 30 Zerglings behind them, but as you were talking about, Romanticide has a good amount of airspace for jumping around in between these bases, so it comes over to that natural, gets a few drones, forces the Spore to reposition, and of course keeps those Lings moving around, all in the meanwhile living very safely at home. And I think this is, you can't really overstate the importance of keeping on this pressure, even if it's not doing catastrophic damage, because at the end of the day, if your opponent has to spend their whole time staring at their own base defending against you, they're not attacking you, and that gives you a whole lot of room to breathe.
Yeah, more units loading up, and there's 2 siege tanks in there. That's looking like, he's already cleared that creep on the north. He's definitely thinking about putting tanks on the high ground above Solar's 4th base. He's going to have Hellions up there, Marines, and he's going to try and maybe even set up on the bridge, but probably on this high ground just above those queens. And if he can get those tank siege, it's going to be a hard position for Solar to engage into. He knows about it though. Solar gets the jump on it, doesn't let Maru set up. A very important first stage of the defense, forces Maru to set up quite far back. Solar has got to pull those queens out of there though.
Yeah, it's bleeding out. It looks like 1 or 2 of them there. There's the transfuse on one of them. Ling's coming from behind. I like that he leaves the Hellnet there to kind of catch him, but the tanks not sieged in time to really give the support that they need for this army, and they're going to get cleaned up. The Marines are still alive, but Pig, well, it's going to be hard to push on creep against Speedbanes.
Indeed, Solar, the Speedbane master. He loves to get that upgrade up quickly, and once he has it, it's very difficult to find a way in. Solar is up to 80 workers behind this. He's got his 2-2. Actually has closed the gap on that a little bit as well. Maru was quite far ahead on the upgrades, but they're very close to each other as Solar drops extra gases, a 5th base, and goes up towards the Infestation and Hydratech. So we're going to see Hydra Lurker, that sort of late game, come out of Solar. And it is indeed a very powerful way of playing the game. But Maru here still has a lot of Marines on the map. He just doesn't have too much to back it up just yet. He's gone for a 4th command center, a 2nd factory. But for now, it's more about harassment and kind of just chipping away at the Zerg than any real serious push.
And we can see the way he's got his Marines spread. Like, this isn't a crazy amount, but that hatchery down to half of its hit points and continuing to drop. Doesn't want to risk it because he sent a huge amount of his army across the map for this backstab. We have SCVs getting blown to smithereens. This is kind of what I was talking about. The first opportunity that Solar is able to go for a counter, he gets a huge payoff because Maru has just constantly been sending everything straight across the field.
Yeah, well, that tank's so annoying. Maru trying to set up all over the place, but he does lose all the workers on his 3rd base. He takes out the 4th of Solar. If he can get a few more workers on top of that, it'll be nice for Maru. But right now, it's looking like Solar has a big economy edge. And oh, the Banelings find the Marines. Solar defends both sides, immediately rebuilds his 4th base. He has the new 5th up in the bottom, and that's a good trade for the Zerg. Happy to drag Maru's economy down into the dust. He's just got to withstand these next few attacks, and Maru's tanks, they keep bleeding out. Maru's on almost pure Marine right now. If we look at the units tab, you can see that his army is almost pure Marines in this game. Oh, the tanks are going down.
I was going to say, he's losing a lot of the tanks. He's still keeping that pressure up, though. Got that base snipe. But yeah, the map presence has been huge. It's 52 Marines with just 3 tanks. And that's, of course, with a couple of them having just finished in the last minute or so. And having 2 factories does make it a bit easier to get back into that tank production. Having a high tank count in these types of situations is really important if you want to use tanks. Just 1 or 2 is going to give the Zerg a little too much freedom to dance around, especially once those lurkers come out and the Viper play gets added into the mix. You know those are going to be huge targets for the abducts and or blinding clouds.
There's 2 Vipers to start. Such a good investment. Parasitic bombs on the medevac's also going to be a way of working down those Lurker Hive Tech upgrades starting up. And the attack upgrades for the range units as well. Solar's under a lot of pressure right now. The fact that he is maintaining control while Maru keeps just poking and prodding, it's impressive. Solar's creep is still out there. It's not a crazy amount of map control for him. But keep in mind that Maru's economy is not where he'd like it to be. 63 SCVs at a point in the game where I think he'd much rather have about 80, 85 workers. Solar's the one who is closer to maxed out. He's the one whose tech is also jumping up at a fierce scale with those lurkers coming in onto the map.
Yeah, well, he's been playing such a swarmy style with his bio, right? And I'm wondering if that's why he's okay with, like, okay, I'll take the old standard 66 SCVs, but here we have the tanks getting blinding clouded right as they are able to siege up outside that base, and we know that spells demise for them. So many Zerglings, so many Banelings. The Marines were never able to get a foothold to actually stand and deliver against this army, especially with the siege tanks being insta-deleted. And this is one of those it's a really stressful situation to be in because, as you were talking about earlier, we didn't really have a transition prepared. You know, there's not a bunch of ghosts waiting back at Maru's base that are going to be going for snipes. We don't have Liberator range research with 3 starports pumping them out to try and cut the map in half. We've just got Marines, Marauders, and some tanks. The Ghost Academy finally starts up with some Vikings, but Pig, is it perhaps a little late here as the 7 lurkers with those upgrades are going to be out soon?
Yeah, definitely looks like a hard position for the Terran here. I mean, having a good siege tank count is actually not a bad counter to lurkers, but he's lost so many siege tanks. Maru finally finds an opening, gets rid of a hatchery and a couple of workers there, and he needs that. He needs to buy time. He needs to somehow secure a 5th base while keeping Solar on his side of the map. Solar, though, is a player who understands this game on a very deep level, and he knows that his army is strong, and now is the time for him to fight. He wants to shut these drops down and get over to the other side of the map because Maru is not ready to defend a lurker assault.
I love the way Solar intelligently puts the parasitic bomb on the medevac with a little bit more HP, knowing that the splash would kill both of them since the cloud remains after it dies. But one of them, even almost equally impressive, Maru, with the way that he split that off to save these Marines. Every single unit he has for that pressure is so important. And these guys are going to see in the bottom left, Solar's kind of sending some forces around. He knows that Maru's been stashing guys, and Maru not looking is going to lose all of the Marines that are over there. But Pig, the lurkers, they're coming!
Yeah, they already forced a siege up in the north. Not as many tanks here. A bit of a fierce thrust forward from Solar. That one siege tank in the natural is doing an insane amount of damage. Solar, maybe a little cavalier with that one. The Banelings do take out a lot of SCVs on the 4th, some of them, but not all of them. Oh, Ling's getting in as well. Engineering Bay is burning. It's a bit of a scrappy attack as Maru stabs in the rear, takes out a bunch of overlords. The rally will eventually clean this up, though, and as Maru's 4th base falls to the lurkers, Solar can pull back, and he knows that he's got a very important victory. 5 base Zerg versus 3 base Terran. Zerg up 50 supply. That is a fantastic situation here for Solar. He's just looking really in control in map 1 of this series.
Yeah, I can't believe the way that, I mean, you were talking about it. It was quite a thrust moving all the lurkers up that ramp, and normally it's like, oh yeah, if the siege tanks are a little far forward, you just jump on them with the lurkers, but those tanks are pretty far back. He bled out quite a bit. And speaking of, the ghosts are going to trim the fat a little bit on the edge of the creep there as well, trying to buy a little more time, create a little bit more space for Maru. But I guess if you're playing in Solar's position and you're able to kill that 4th or continue to deny it or put pressure on it, that really is the lifeblood of the Terran army. Maru's supply has been going back up towards 200 a lot more slowly this time.
Yeah, he's been bruised. That very first big attack on his 3rd base, killing almost 30 SCVs. I mean, that has been such a problem for Maru, and the fact that every attack consecutively he's lost his siege tanks without really finding that amazing trade that he wants. I mean, yeah, he's a little more efficient in the units lost. That's normal here. Solar's taken more of the map. He's exposed himself to more risks. And often you'll see Terran players way ahead by this point in the units lost tab. This is not the case in this game. Maru, though, he's hanging on. We talked about his grit, his determination, and the fact that Solar's good at getting control, not always good at finishing the game off. And right now, Maru, I mean, he's hanging on in here. He's trying to continue to find damage. These drops just doggedly poking in again.
And that hatchery, though, surviving with 70 hit points. He was willing to leave the bio there and just run with the medevacs, hoping that he could, at the very least, try to put another dent in that income chart. As we're seeing, it's a nice little advantage for Solar. He's got that cash rolling in. And despite all of the efforts to the contrary, Maru has not been able to really call the economy of Solar. As you pointed out, Pig, he's been spreading his creep very effectively. He's taken the east side expansion back. He's taken that even further northeast expansion. Thank you, a wonderful observer, Mapu. And double Spire on the way with those 3/3 Ling upgrades. So the option to make that transition into Broodlords, or even if it's just a couple of Corruptors and Mutalisks that are necessary for a little here and there play, is going to open up some doors. But the Ghosts, as the Ghost count rises, Terran versus Zerg can get pretty weird. You don't want him to get caught, but the amount of damage output from those cloaked snipes can be very, very powerful.
They went pretty deep, did these Ghosts. A few of them get surrounded. Parasitic bombs go down. Some of the Ghosts being picked up to safety. Quite a few of them do fall, but as do a lot of Zerg units. And Maru there definitely waving the red flag in front of the bull that is Solar. Baits him into the siege tanks. Does take a pretty good trade. He'll need a lot more of those. And you know what? Oh, we're getting that snipe on the hatch behind it as well. This is good. This is what Maru needs to do to drag his way back into this. He's building extra command centers, but it's like one at a time. So if he loses a fourth, if he can't secure a fifth, he's going to run out of steam very quickly. But if Maru can keep up these little bits of light pressure, pick off a hatchery here or there, take this central base with the rich gas, then he will be able to start to regain some control over this map. And the Ghosts are an incredibly high value unit if the game goes long enough. But even that previous attack, it used a lot of their energy. It's going to take them a while to recover that. So the Ghosts are a unit that's efficient over a long period of time. They are always at risk of getting overwhelmed.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. They don't really fight well on their own. Sure, they do some bonus damage to light units, but they're not shooing as fast as Marines are. And there's the Parasitic Bomb on that double Marauder drop to force the unload on at least one of them. Marauders, not known for their efficacy against Zerglings, and this medevac is going to unload by the natural, trying to find a place to go. It's been very hard because Solar has been so on top of either splitting his army up to deal with these forces or getting those Parasitic Bombs off, getting those Abducts off, and kind of taking the drop play out of the game a little bit, which makes it even more impressive, right, with like those random hatchery pickoffs that Maru's been able to get thus far.
The upgrade tab getting very full there for Zerg. +2 range, pathogen glands, double air upgrades. All sorts of things starting to slide on out for Solar, but I think he's just going to wait for his moment. And this is a mature choice by Maru, taking that base on the left side of the map. He's got that beautiful tank spread turrets everywhere. Now, we saw a similar stalemate to this in one of the Beyond Seral matchups from, I believe it was the Last Chance tournament. And really the answer to this is to come out with a surprise round of Broodlords. If you can come out and they don't have too many Vikings enough to one-shot Broodlords or a bunch of Thors or something like that, you can kind of just swing in and say, look, you've got a crazy high tank count. Yes, that's very scary. The Ghosts are very good. But if I can just come in with a big wave of Broodlords and you're not fully positioned and prepared, that definitely can do very well. But I think it's very dangerous, right? We've seen Broodlords just die to Vikings. We've seen them get sniped and look useless if the infestors covering them get EMP'd. So I think for now, Solar's playing more of a look. I'm still ahead on the bank. Let's wait for you to stretch yourself out a little bit too thin. I will open up the Great Aspire tech so that I've got that option. But for now, he seems to just be kind of waiting for Maru to make a misstep. And Maru is playing super patiently. He's not giving him that opportunity at all. He's just kind of chilling.
Is seeing the lurkers move forward to take a tank and a sensor tower in a place where they can't really push further than that really just tells you they're fighting for every single inch. Every little tiny bit that can be grabbed is worth its weight in gold in this type of game, because we're already kind of getting to that, all right, I'm taking the corner bases. I'm just going to try and throw everything at you. And hopefully that cost-effective Terran army just doesn't hold up, right? You want to burn through that ghost energy. And it will eventually come down as well, as we see that Parasitic Bomb get another 2 medevacs. A lot of it's going to come down to that control of the ghosts versus the Vipers, right? Whether you're getting those abducts, those blinding clouds, those parabombs, whether you're landing those snipes or they're getting canceled, or getting the EMPs, right, on either the Vipers or the Infestors. Those specialist units are so integral, because 2 blinding clouds in the right spots over those tanks makes them all useless, right?
Indeed, indeed. Absolutely does, Nate. And this Viking count's getting kind of crazy right now. Like, I wish we could see the units tab, because I keep seeing 4 Vikings building at a time, and I'm like, isn't that too many? Like, he's got 9 Vikings out. He's going to go up to at least 14 or 15. Like, that's a very high Viking count. They're not being upgraded by Maru either. So I think he's honestly expecting that Broodlord switch that I talked about. I think he's saying, look, I've locked this down so well with such a heavy tank count. Okay, so he is now upgrading those Vikings attack. There we go. He has added that on. But yeah, I feel like he's just kind of saying, look, you're probably going to try and bust me with Broodlords. As long as I have Vikings to defend that, to gun down your Vipers as well, then I can be good. And you know what's going to win me a really slow game? It's either range libs, or even better, a whole bunch of battle cruisers with 3-3. The best harassment unit in the game, funnily enough. The battle cruiser, their ability in the late game to just pick units off with Yamato, they're so efficient.
Yeah, I was going to say, you just want to try to avoid having them get into a fight where the Corruptors are involved. But otherwise, yeah, the ability to either even just yeeting some in, trying to shut down tech, or keeping the teleport for an escape path. But Maru's not quite as poor as he was earlier, right? We've seen the game state change. He's done a good job of developing everything a little bit further forward. Vikings are going to come grab this Overseer and bringing out the nukes. Yes, the Spores can reposition. Yes, the Lurkers can reposition very easily. But you're creating space on the map when you use these zoning nukes that kind of say, hey, if you're not here, that means I can inch forward just a little bit more, almost like a sort of trench warfare style setup. And there's that Liberator range that you were talking about, Pig. That's starting up now. I think that's a phenomenal way of dealing with the Lurkers, because they have so much range. And then if you want to bring the Corruptors or Vipers over, that's when the Ghosts get involved. And that becomes the old Terran versus Zerg late game dance, right, that we've come to know in Legacy of the Void.
Part of me is looking at this situation now. Solar there has a 16,000 resource bank up against Maru's 5,000. That's massive. Over 10,000 resource advantage. But the problem is he hasn't been able to use it. And where can he find a way to use it? Right now, abducting in the bottom left, grabs the siege tanks out. Does do some damage there. He's trying to run in now. Lurker's going to burrow on top of that tank and that planetary. Ling's taking out the morphing extra planetary. But a whole lot of Lurkers do fall. This is not cheap. I know that there's a few Bronze League players out there shouting it in the Twitch chat already. Where's the Nidus worm? But honestly, I'd love it. Like,
I would too.
It'd be sick.
I mean, that's the absolute best way to exploit this, right? Other than just trying to stretch the opponent thin on the defense, and I was saying that may not even be necessary. Gets all of the tanks by the center position base with the gold gas, kills the command center, and the Hydras are still moving forward over here. So, yeah, there's that anchor planetary to hold it down, but Maru's counterattack is hitting a base that has already been, I mean, for the most part, mined out. There's some minerals left, but at this stage, you really just want to make sure you're pulling in that gas, and that base is close enough that, I mean, in a worst-case situation, it's not going to be that hard for Solo to secure later on if he needs to. Maru, I feel like he's not getting quite enough done here with this setup, with this army composition that he has. The Ghosts are being chased back towards that 4th base as well.
Mass Zergling, you know, there's not many Marines anymore. It's mostly just Ghosts and Siege tanks. And the Zerglings actually do really well in this scenario. Those Ghosts pulling back are gunning them down, attacking into planetaries. Multiple planetaries, not the best there. Okay, the tail end of that trade got really nasty. But the moves before that were great. Solar here, as Maru spreads out to not just a 5th base, but a 6th base, a 7th base, Solar's finding angles just with this swarm of unit advantage. And the thing is, the fact that Maru's retaking those bases, that's an opportunity. That's actually a huge misstep in my opinion. If Solar keeps jumping on those with these same sort of mid-gear armies, he'd do really well. I think Broodlords is a terrible mistake at this point. I actually feel like if he just kept making Hydraling Bane, he could push through. He's seen Mass Viking, the Ghosts are low on energy, he's cleared the siege tank count out. This is the time to stay on the low tier units. I think he's swapping into air at exactly the wrong moment. Maybe he can make it work. Let's see what Solar can do here.
Yeah, I was gonna say I couldn't agree with you more, Pig, because he just saw, right? We just had a couple of units get picked off by that big round of Vikings that Maru has, and I was thinking the same thing as you, because even with just a few Lings and Hydras and Banes, he's been crazy cost effective. Look, he's gonna get all the siege tanks here, might even blow up this planetary or the SCVs on it. He's gonna get everything. I feel like going into Broodlords might be one of the few ways that he could throw from the position that he was in. Not that Maru's completely out of it, but I feel, Solar's kind of been in the driving seat as far as the main armies go. Maru's had to avoid that head-on confrontation because Solar has started to amass such a terrifying horde, you could call it.
Oh, dude, that is a huge snipe. Maru taking out the two most mineral-rich bases of Solar. Right at this moment where Solar's bank has just been spent, you can see there on his camera, he's moving around in his chair a little bit. You could see him kind of glance down at his keyboard for a moment. You could tell he's a little rattled losing those hatcheries. He's quickly rebuilt them in the top right, but suddenly that income advantage, that money advantage, where is it? Maru's got those two fresh, completely unmined bases in the top of the map. They're getting cemented down, and he's maxed. And Maru has so many more resources to mine from these bases than Solar does. Solar's already mined a lot more of his side of the map. The units lost tab was really good for Zerg earlier in this game. A couple thousand behind, which is really good for this matchup. Now it is way worse. You can see there that the Zerg has just lost an extra 8,000, 9,000 resources more. He's going to look to do some damage with the Broodlords. Can he make it happen?
And it's not that easy though, right? He's forced to kind of pull back. This is the worst kind of tappy-toe situation to be in, because that Liberator with range tries to zone out the ramp to keep Infestors away from the Vikings. There's still the Ghosts there too. And yeah, if you can land the Fungal onto the center mass of the Vikings, that's nice. But the Corruptors still don't have as much range. So when they come up to try and do anything about those Vikings, the Ghosts then have the opportunity once more to get those snipes off as that middle base is picked off again. And he's just going to run up to snipe the Overseers, trying to limit, of course, the detection range, as those Overseers, when they siege up, they get some wild amounts of true sight over where these cloaked boys are trying to potentially land some snipes or even a nuke from. And I don't think he's rebuilt the nukes though since he fired off the few that he made.
These Broodlords getting some good trades off, but he just can't go too far. If he oversteps for a moment, those EMPs, those Vikings are going to find really big targets. Those snipes on the Broodlords always something that we have to count for as well. And just the continual base sniping from Maru has been very big. If Solar was mining this bottom left this whole time, I feel like he could continue to kind of overwhelm and just kind of strangle Maru, but he hasn't got that. He's just now starting it up. He hasn't really cracked into the production. Now is not the time to Nidus Worm because he's on an air army, but definitely if he ever gets to the point of kind of trading this out and rebuilding a different sort of army, I'd love to see that. For now, though, it's all Spellcaster micro. Parasitic Bomb on the Vikings, they're quickly split, though. As long as Maru keeps repairing those Vikings up, pulling the SCVs, then he might be able to do well there, and he keeps sniping these hatcheries off, looking for these good little trades on the fringes. But the one real fear as a Terran fan here, Maru done so many things to pull himself back into this game. The Viking count is massive. He's very reliant on it, and they are just damned fragile to these spellcasters. So really is at a point where, oh my god, no, just like that, chain fungal landing, parasitic bomb does go down as well. I cannot believe it. Oh my lord,
you've got to be
the nuke.
You got to be so careful. Yeah, he starts with the nuke, right? And then you think I think he wanted to kind of bait Solar and say, yeah, I'll give you the fungal on the Vikings because you don't see the Ghost. But that was not the case. The Broodlords targeted down the Ghost, and then all the Vikings ripped to pieces by fungal. Vikings have a lot of range. They do some pretty good damage, but they are made of paper mache, Pig. They fall apart. They get ripped and torn pretty easily. If it's a little drizzly outside and you're carrying it from one classroom to the other, it's going to fall apart in your hands before you get to your seat. And that's something that you have to be really mindful of. You want those Vikings spread out before the fight. You want some of them on one side of the planetary, some of them on the other. It hurts the target firing, but I mean, it's a little bit better than eating that double AoE of the parasitic bomb, the fungal growth, because that's a wombo combo that is very, very hard to overcome if he wipes out all of your Vikings once or twice.
And this is the previous series. Solar won with that exact same move against Showtime. The fungal Viper combo there. And some EMPs landing, clipping quite a few of those units. Sporkroll on the high ground looking good. I'd love those Broodlords to finish that planetary off. It's burning, and he's not even repairing it right now. got very low, but I think after the EMPs landed and those libs got sieged so far, Solar did not want to take any risks. Instead, going to focus on denying the bottom left base as that Ling Hydra continues to maraud around the map. And yeah, the fact that Solar, I mean, he did it against Showtime in also not an amazing position. Just big fungal Viper combo, the parasitic bomb. He's going to keep looking for it here. Doesn't quite get the detection on that ghost, and he's just going to back off for now. Pull the Spore Crawler back. We'll have to replace those creep tumors and push on back forward. Solar has built himself an impressive bank. He's still chipping away, and even though Maru has those very rich bases in the middle and the top center of the map, Solar is just keeping him well off the bottom side.
Yeah, this game's gotten kind of wild, hasn't it? So that resources loss gets a little bit closer now, about a 7,000 total differential, a little bit better than what we were looking at earlier for Solar. So he is chipping away at a decent pace, and I think if he gets another big round of those Vikings taken down, that should suck out the rest of Maru's bank. These are the types of situations where you just have to be so cautious about every move that you make, because both of these players have pretty much all the pieces that they need to do this. But at this point, it boils down purely to the multitasking, the control, the decision-making. 26 Vikings can deal with 16 Broodlords, right? With the Ghost support and some Marines, the Thors. Obviously, he doesn't really have Marines at this point anymore, but they'll be the easiest thing for him to replenish in a worst-case scenario. But conversely, if the Corruptors with the Parasitic Bomb and a Fungal hit those Vikings, then it swings the other way real freaking quick.
Indeed, Nate. And you talked about spreading out the Vikings. Well, Maru is a braver man than you or I. He absolutely never does it. Same thing against Protoss. When Storm can land, if he's playing against Carrier Skytoss, he will clump his Vikings till the day he dies. And it means he can one-shot units and pick them off. So when he does his micro just right, the way he intends, it gives him amazing ability to pick off units without really taking any damage. But we saw what happens if he gets hit by the Fungal. It's a big if. Maru thinks he's good enough to just make sure it never happens. We on the sidelines, instead of watching with our hearts about to explode, because we know how easy it is for just one Fungal to land in the middle of those Vikings. So it really makes this a nail-biting and exciting match to watch, as the micro on either side could be game-ending. Likewise, if EMP lands on all of the Infestors and Vipers, there's not much support left, and Solar's army just gets overwhelmed.
Yeah, I love the zoning nuke, though. Throws out another one, and he's trying to, once again, kind of keep that space open. You're not running your Infestors or anything in that general direction. Obviously, you don't want to get EMP'd, but being nuked is a little bit worse, I think some people could say. And it's turned into a struggle over the final base, the final uncontested base, right? Or I guess the final contested base being that pocket left corner, which Maru had earlier and kind of got unseated from. But considering that Solar's gotten that top right corner base, I mean, that means the maximum amount of resources available for these two players is not the same if one of them is able to get the majority of this last, really the last one that neither of them have been able to secure properly. Bringing in, building missile turrets right on top of location. Peggy saying, "This is mine. I want it. Nobody else can have it." The Infestors come forward. Solid EMP. It's a few of them. There is a nuke running, but I don't think he's got the vision to actually go for it yet. The Overseers come up a smidge. They are not able to kill it.
You gotta pull out of there. Okay, Soul, I was like, dude, I thought he maybe thought he'd killed the ghost that launched the nuke, and I was like, you need to pull back, dude. He does get out of there. On the top side of the map, there's Bio with the Liberator behind. I really love the way Maru is looking for efficiency there. I think Solar, he should be able to overwhelm, but actually more Bio comes in, and this is turning into a really nice fight for Maru. Solar needs to overcommit, I think, to just clear up that fight on the other side, and if Maru can get that base up in the bottom left at the same time, that will be huge. He's going to take out this hatchery in the top right by the looks of it. There's not that much Zerg left to defend. Marauder's very tanky. And more EMPs coming forward, but Ghosts do pay with their lives. Ooh, a Fungal clips a few of the Vikings, but only a few. Those EMPs landing and answering the Thors there. More Vikings spread out, so it feels like Maru, he's clumping enough Vikings to one-shot Broodlords, and the rest are not on a control group. So that's actually very clever. He wants the advantage without, maximizing the downside, I guess. He wants to just try and minimize that risk of getting every single Viking caught by a Fungal.
Yeah, and I don't mind that at all, because as long as you're using enough Vikings to one-shot whatever's on the edge, there's no reason really to risk any more of them assuming that a fungal or a parasitic bomb comes in. So just a really clever heads-up play by Maru once again. The Broodlords are going to show up to the bottom left base. The Ghosts were kind of just running past those spores up north. They are not in position to do much about this right now. And this is, oh my God, just watching this has just been so intense. The struggle to try and claim the last base that has any moderate level of resources left, even though it's not untouched though, Pig. It's been kind of shared between the two of them. We know the Terran is supposed to be able to do more with less, but in this situation, I think Maru would really like to have some more.
Yeah, both players really, I mean, they know it's going to come down to potentially the last few units in this game, and double nukes now going down to zone out. But remember, each time you nuke like that, that's 100 minerals, 100 gas for each one. So that's 200 minerals, 200 gas. What do you get for it?
An extractor.
A creep tumor. Extractor. I mean, it allows you to mine a little bit of minerals there. So, I mean, this does take pressure off you. It allows you to push forward, but ooh, nice answer there. Comes forward with the Broodlords, throws down a wave and pushes them back, forces them to cancel those nukes. This is such a close game, and it seems to have settled down with neither player wanting to really overcommit to the bottom left, but it could still turn very quickly at any moment.
A couple of engaging fungals there from Solar as he's able to get a Ghost or two, a Viking or two, and hits the Thor there. And the Thors can help deal a lot of damage to that air unit, but yeah, there's not really... I guess with the Infestors gone, the Vikings should be able to, with some kiting, deal with a lot of what is here. But I wonder if he can actually chase them, though, because there's so many Corruptors.
The EMP,
and there's still the spores.
And with the EMPs, like, yeah, you called it, Nate. I mean, they took out the Spellcasters, but the Corruptors doing all right. It looks like taking that base out, though, is huge, because now Solar pushes back all the static in this area. And, oh, he's got just enough Corruptors to jump on top. If there was a few Ghosts in reserve, that's where, like, a big snipe wave would come in, clear the Corruptors, and your Vikings demolish. But enough Fungals and Parasitic Bombs went down that I think so much damage landed on those Vikings before they all got EMP'd. And so because of that, it was just enough to turn that kind of the critical moment where suddenly the Terran doesn't have enough damage output, your Corruptors overwhelm, your Broodlords take out the ground, and now it looks like Solar's got a massively dominating army.
Yeah, and this has been such a well-played game by Solar, taking that engagement at a perfect time when the energy had been burned, when some of the Ghosts had either been out of position or killed already. So that northeast base dies, but Maru is not sitting on a tremendous amount of resources. He still has a couple of bases that are mining, so it's not over by any means, but he's going to start to slowly run out of the gas, sooner than the rest of his resources. And that's kind of where we talked about those Ghosts and those nukes and how cost-effective they are. 100 minerals, 100 gas. It's like, oh, it doesn't sound like a lot for a nuke, but then, you're 40 minutes deep into a game on Romanticide, and you might have burned about a base or two worth of resources, maybe a whole mineral patch or two, or a whole geyser worth of gas, and you're suddenly wishing that you had some other units instead of that. And this is where I find it just gets so hard, because he tried to use so many Vikings, but as we're talking about, they're a little bit on the flimsier side, and then there were so many Corruptors with those Broodlords, he couldn't actually fight the Broodlords. He was busy trying to deal with the Corruptors the whole time, because those can kill the Vikings too. So now there's the defensive nuke, the panic nuke, but I mean, it takes a pretty huge mistake from a Zerg player to fall for this and get hit by that.
Oh my God.
Oh my goodness, he's trying to get that shot. It does land! He gets all the Broodlords! What?
Oh
my God.
Oh my God.
Oh.
No!
Ah!
Cannot
What?
believe. Oh my God, he was launching nukes in the corner at the same time. So Solar, you can see him there, the reaction in his chair. He cannot believe it. He thought it was a nuke going down on one of his expansions. He did not realize there was one in his army. Oh, great Fungals. He's still in this. He's still going to fight it out. He does not have much money left. He's army.
I can't.
No.
Oh my God. I'm just sitting there. doing my normal thing. I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, this is the part where the Broodlords come in. He's gonna finish him off. He's lost too much. Oh, here's the panic nuke that never works. I'm gonna just chuck the ball up and see what happens. Turns out Randy Moss was there, ladies and gentlemen, because Maru just pulled this game back out from the void, or whatever place you want to say is where we go when we're bad. He managed to save this game from that spot, and what a hell of a way for a 40-minute game one in this best of 3 to have ended. Pig, boy, we picked a good match to do here, huh?
Oh my lord, dude! You were just doing some great running commentary, and I was just thinking, it's about time I give props to Solar. I was talking before the series about how he sometimes has trouble finishing it off, and even though Maru's fought this to the late game, Solar's done it textbook. He's about to close this. I was about to give the kind of closing remarks commentary of the game. Neither of us expected.
That's what I was trying to do. I'm like, no, it's. That's never supposed to happen. That's never supposed to happen. I think we're going to get another look at that. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like deals, if you like sales, oh my God, well, enjoy your little highlight of us taking a trip to Value Town, because it is hard to beat that. And you know what, Pig? I can still go back to your earlier anecdote, because at the end of the day, it boils down to what you said earlier, which is that Maru plays so well from behind. The moment you get any level of comfort, you're like, oh yeah, I think I've done it. I killed all his ghosts. I killed all of his stuff. I killed his last couple bases. I should be fine now, right? Nope. That's when the one nuke that you couldn't stop hits your whole army. And, well, those GG Lords were, they were still that, but for a different reason.
That was literally just catching a player at the moment when they think the game is over, and they're kind of rounding it up mentally, and they're going, cool, let's just finish this off. And Maru still had the poise to he's doing little trippy drops. He's launching a nuke in the bottom left corner, and Solar just does not notice that nuke in front of his army. For a moment when he went back in, I thought he noticed the ghost and said, oh yeah, I'm just going to target fire that. I've got time. But by God, what a comeback in the first map.
I'm gonna be, if I seem tired for the rest of today's show, it's because all of my energy did come out in holding back my IEM F-bomb there. That was absolutely wild. But here we are in game number 2, because this match ain't over yet. So in the bottom right, leading the series somehow, some way, from Team Envy, it is Maru.
And up here in the top left-hand side of the map, representing Katowice Gaming, a player who just had a very upsetting loss from ahead. Can he keep it together and rally in this series? It is Solar.
And of course, after all of that, we had to have Maru building barracks in the middle of the map. And this kind of takes me back to my warm blanket place, where I say, okay, we're back to reality. The simulation is running as scheduled again. Maru's not building his stuff in his own base. I feel warm and safe again, Pig. And that's a good feeling. I don't know how it'll end, but this brings me a little bit back towards sanity from what we just saw in that 40-minute slugfest of a game.
Yeah, dude, that is absolutely insane. I don't know, man. The pressure's on. It's a hard moment. You're going to need to micro this really well, and being thrown off, it is not going to make this easy. When you are just off your game, even just a tiny bit, it is going to be very, very hard. Drones being pulled out to the front. 3 drones to start. That first Marine already getting a lot of hit point damage across this. Nothing landing for Solar just yet.
No, well, and then all of a sudden, this turns into an episode of Deadliest Catch, right? We've got the crab monsters coming out all over these Marines, trying to push this back, create that space, and save this. But 5 drones have already died, Pig, and there's still a couple of Marines that were alive from that bunker. I believe should be able to get the cancel on that, so that is definitely going to be one of the things that can help in this type of situation.
The Overlord.
Oh, well, the Overlord dies and 5 drones. Tell me, Pig, how what does it look like? Tell me, Doc. Give it to me straight.
This is going to be, I mean, we talked about Maru being great at playing behind. Well, Solar's going to need to be great at it in this game. He is now far behind. What a turnaround, the momentum, the energy in this series. I mean, Solar was literally eating his t-shirt in frustration in between the games. You saw it on the camera. He had his shirt in his mouth. Now his opponent's 2-raxed him. He's been drone scouting for this a lot. He didn't find it. He was not super duper prepared in terms of the micro. And you know what? Just being a little off, Maru says, I'm going to take you to my happy place, microing Marines versus early drones, and I'm just going to take an awesome advantage.
Yeah, that's... I like that you use the word happy place. Reminds me of an old Meet the Pyro video where they put on his glasses and it turns out the guy that just burns everything to the ground sees the world as rainbows and unicorns. That's kind of the vibe you get from Maru sometimes, right? You're like, I wonder what he sees when he's pulling his workers and proxying stuff all the game. And Maru's like, no, it's just we're just dancing through beautiful green meadows filled with blooming lilacs and colorful, wonderful skies. And yeah, no, it's just all awful everything for his opponent as Solar is now, and just, you know, even if you recover decently, your whole game plan is still kind of thrown off by that, right? You have to adjust everything to account for the new game state that you've been thrust into.
Absolutely, and it just means the timings are a little different, easier to forget a small detail here or there. It's going to be a Hellion drop to follow things up for Maru. Going to go in towards the main base. The Overlords are out there, but they're not particularly well positioned, so I don't think he's going to get super early warning of this drop. As I say that, I think there's an Overlord that'll plug the hole in his vision. Link speed should finish just in time as well.
Yeah, so that'll at least give a little bit of the map control back there, right? Which sounds nice, but Maru's already coming in for his next attack because that's what he does. The medevac making its way towards that main base. Stim is coming in behind this, though. 3 Marines are being built at a time. So while he's doing all this with the Hellions, trying to create a little bit of pressure, trying to find a bit more damage that he can do, he's being as forward-thinking as he can with that follow-up. If Solar tunnel vision's too hard on this, or if he takes any... I really feel like if he takes any level of serious damage from these Hellions, it turns into a nightmare when the Marines show up with Stim.
Yeah, is this... I mean, this is 3 racks before 3rd command center, right?
I think so, yes. Yeah, I don't believe there's a 3rd CC there.
Big 2 base push. That's going to be really... I mean, this is just... Let's pedal to the metal, right? Do the proxy barracks, follow up with a very flexible pressure in the Hellion drop, keep poking around, and then bam, a big 2 base Marine tank timing is going to come out. I mean, I expect Maru to have a 3rd command center behind it, but this is very far on the extreme end of regression for this matchup.
Yes.
This is something you'd see more against a Protoss player. Against Zerg, because their economy can explode so fast, this is basically something you're looking for a kill move. And Solar, I don't think he has any idea this is coming right now.
And the potential to catch him off guard there is absolutely massive. And I love that you bring that up, because I was going to say, there was also only 1 engineering bay. There are no Terran versus Zerg builds that are 1 eBay, other than very, very heavy type pushes. But almost every single strategy that you see in this matchup is like, oh yeah, now you get your engineering base. This is the time when you move into your upgrades. But trying to hit that +1 with just a bunch of Stim Marines, he's going to be able to do it. And Maru just shoves over a weak and battered and bruised Solar for that second